1. A couple of summers ago, I went on a trip with my parents and a couple of other family members to Washington, D.C. in August. For anyone who doesn't know, D.C. in August is hot as fuck. I knew this. I had been during a couple of other summers, and I grew up in a nearby state, so I am used to the relentless southern summer heat and humidity. That summer alone, I had been running 3 miles a day in 98-degree heat, with absolutely no issues. So even though I knew it would be hot, I didn't really take it into consideration too much. Our first day there, we're wandering around visiting some sites while waiting to meet up with my sister, who was driving down from Pennsylvania. We had been walking around for probably a couple of hours when we decided to stop by the World War II Memorial. I hadn't visited DC in a few years, so this was my first time seeing it. And it's honestly a really beautiful memorial. So anyway, we're doing our touristy things, taking pictures, blah blah blah. My dad wanted a picture of all of us in front of the reflecting pool. So he got a nice gentleman to take a picture with my newish $550 camera that at the time was probably the most expensive thing I owned. Right after taking that picture, I remember feeling suddenly lightheaded and saying to my mom, "Let's just sit here for a bit until we hear from my sister." My mother tried to tell me that, popping a squat beside the reflecting pool of a national memorial with no benches is probably frowned upon. But I was already down, really down. The next thing I remember is feeling like I was literally caught in the middle of whitewater rapids. I was wet and I was rolling around and I couldn't figure out why I was having this weird dream when I had just been awake. And then I realized that I had passed out and fallen into the reflecting pool at a crowded monument. But we're not done. I just so happened to be visiting on the same day as a group of naval petty officers who immediately saw my dumbass fall into the pool and immediately rushed over to help. Also, I had my camera around my neck at the time, so that managed to fall into the pool with me and fuck up the lens. I 100% knew that it was just from dehydration and heat exhaustion, so all I wanted to do was drink some water, crawl into a hole, and die. But nope, unbeknownst to me at the time, I'd also managed to smack my head against the bottom of the pool, so I had a giant bleeding bump on my head on top of everything else. Oh, and when I attempted to drink the water that was provided to me, I immediately vomited it up back into the pool. Literally 6 inches from the sign that read, "Please respect our veterans." Dehydration plus loss of consciousness plus bleeding head wound equals several naval officers calling an ambulance, getting rolled away from a tourist attraction on a gurney, and sitting in the ER waiting room for 3.5 hours in soaking wet clothes, bleeding from the head. Only to have the doctor check you out and tell you to drink more water, and then walking around DC for the next several days with a bashed-in head, black eye, and just generally looking like I had gotten into and lost a bar fight. 2. So the background to this event was that my girlfriend was working in Singapore, and I was going out to meet her for 4 weeks holiday. We hadn't seen each other in 3 months as I was working in the UK and had plans to explore the island for a week and then visit a few neighbouring countries. In the run-up to this, she had told me how she tried visiting a sex shop a few weeks prior, but was too creeped out by the reactions of the customers and staff to browse in peace, so she left without buying anything. Therefore, I decided to be the gentleman and purchase her a present before I left. As I was packing light for adventure travel, I had taken off the packaging and wrapped it up in a t-shirt, which I had then stuffed in the bottom of my bag. I was flying business with a Middle Eastern airline from London on a staff travel ticket, kindly arranged by a friend of mine who is a pilot for the airline. To make matters worse, his dad is also a senior employee. Flying staff business on a friend's account is a sensitive issue as you have to dress well, no jeans or trainers, suit jacket recommended, etc., and be on your best behavior. Ultimately, it's his reputation that gets burned if you're an asshole. Rather than just change planes at the Middle Eastern hub, I was going to enter the country for a couple of days and hang out with my friend, who was desperate for visitors. Therefore, my backpack couldn't be sent on and had to be collected. As I grabbed it off the conveyor belt, I noticed that there were 2 large cable ties attached. One was blue and the other was yellow or green, I don't remember. I didn't know what to make of it, so I bent them back and down between my back and my bag, so they weren't dangling wildly as I walked and proceeded to exit through customs. I need to add that I really hate going to certain Middle East countries. I've been out there a few times, and the thinly veiled totalitarian theocracy just makes me feel on edge. I'm not a big fan of religion in general, and the idea of falling afoul of a belief system I regard as made up and a blight to humanity really irks me, especially as you can't expect fair treatment from their legal systems. There was a single bored-looking guard posted at the exit watching people walk by. I nodded at him as I walked past, and he ignored me in return. Just as I was about to exit, a door I hadn't noticed flung open, and 2 armed guys ran out and started sprinting down the hall. Someone's about to get fucked, I thought. Turns out that person was me. To my shame, they grabbed me in front of loads of passengers and marched me into what I guess was some sort of search and interrogation room. They started emptying my bag with ruthless efficiency, and then the dildo landed in the middle of the table. The situation was so bad, standing there in silence with 2 or 3 angry Arab customs officials glaring at me. "What is this?" the main official demanded angrily, picking it up by the edges of the battery compartment, holding it like one would tentatively pick up a soiled item of clothing found on their lawn. "You do not bring this into our country." I can't recall precisely what was said next, but basically I was accused of being a homosexual degenerate, their words, not mine, bringing indecency to their fair land, and they wanted to know who I was meeting and staying with, the son of one of their national airline's most senior employees. This was so bad. My worst nightmare was coming true, and I was going to land my innocent friend and his family in shit, and possibly cost them their careers. They told me of the consequences of such actions in their local law. Jail? And then my mind started to disassociate and sort of float inwards and away from the situation, and I don't remember too clearly what was said after that. Then they left the room, came back after a few minutes, gave me a summary bollocking, and then to my huge relief said I could go. I didn't hang about. I felt obliged to warn my friend, but he laughed it off and said things would be fine. I've been back a few times without major incident, but was almost refused boarding on my next visit as chinos and a barber jacket was deemed not smart enough. Still totally worth it for that cheap staff travel fare. P.S. My bad luck didn't end there. On my second day in Singapore, my girlfriend's crazy old Singaporean step-grandma, Auntie, searched my bags when we were out getting lunch, discovered my malaria pills, and thought they were drugs and threatened to call the police unless I left the flat. Did someone say death penalty? Also, our bus skidded off the road and almost went off a cliff at 2 a.m. in the middle of nowhere during a 12-hour ride through a cyclone in the Philippines. Also, we tried to do some cave tour in Palawan with a forged permit. The office in Puerto Princesa was closed for an entire week due to holidays, which backfired horrifically, and the tour guide ran off into the jungle when the officials at the entrance of the cave threatened to call the police on him. Never saw him again. I also got fired a month after I got back to work, but that's because my ex-boss is a terrible human being. This is also not the worst thing that happened to me. I once accidentally summoned a drug lord to our accommodation on a school trip to Kenya. But that's a tale for another day. 3. I stopped by Target and decided to gather the trash from my car. This is a rarity. I was juggling my wallet, keys, and too many empty Starbucks cups. Sorry, planet. I threw the trash away and continued on. At checkout, I realized that I didn't have my wallet, and boy did I lose it. My first inclination was that I must have dropped it, so I retraced my steps and asked all the delinquent-looking teens if they had seen my wallet. Likely story. Then I frantically ran to the car to make sure I hadn't left it there. I decided to ask guest services if they had seen a wallet, but they had not, and called an associate to help me. I'm not sure if it was a particularly slow day at Target, but soon I had a brigade of store associates pacing the aisles with me and firing me up that I had indeed been robbed. They told me this had happened a few times that day already, and that thieves were basically waiting for anyone to turn their back to steal from them. Soon I find myself on the phone with the police department, and they are on their way over, and Target's security team are fiercely reviewing the tapes, and talking on their walkie-talkies with my personal team of wallet detectives. Soon the officer comes to take my statement. It's very official. and he proceeds to investigate the tapes with the security team. Finally, my boyfriend arrives, probably because I was calling him over and over. But why is he not surprised that I'm at Target with the police? This was not his first rodeo. The first thing he says, "Are you sure you didn't throw it away?" And I stared back at him like, "How dare you accuse me of being an idiot?" But realized that it could be possible. He turns around and dives headfirst into the trash. Okay, I'm being dramatic. And beneath the Starbucks cups, he finds my wallet, for which has already been described in detail in the police report. So now I'm all flustered and yell, "No, that's not it," and start pulling him around to the dollar section so no one can see us. I'm yelling at him to throw the wallet back in the trash. I can't let the officer see it. My boyfriend then walks down the hall to try to show the wallet to the police officer and security people, while I'm physically pulling him back yelling, "No!" Because here I am, trying to save my dignity and also my reputation, because I love Target and want to be able to show my face here again. I finally get him to come back to hide in the dollar section, as I'm scheming how to make my escape. Wait, can I even do that? Is that running away from a crime? Wait, I called the police officers, but there's no crime. The Target people told me to. I didn't have enough time to plot my escape, and the police officer comes back and I'm casually leaning on a cart, trying to play it cool. So then, of course, I just freak out and wave my hands in the air yelling, "Woo, we found it! In the trash!" He then seriously asks, "How much was missing?" So I previously had told him in the official wallet thievery statement, a way higher number that I thought was in my wallet but actually wasn't. So either I'm going crazy or someone did steal some. He then proceeds to tell me that he's going to conduct a thorough investigation because he thinks he knows who did it. I told him that it wouldn't be necessary and I really appreciated his help, and I was just happy I had my wallet. He insisted an investigation would need to happen. Right about now, I just picture everyone watching the security tapes and finding me dumping my wallet into the trash. 4. I was in high school, and whenever the next semester was coming up, we would have assistance with signing up for the following semester classes. Typically, this was done with paper and a teacher's assistance. One year, the school decided we could just do it online, and they would give us a sheet of paper with what we needed course-wise. This was the first year that it was more hands-on. I decided that I wanted to take all honors classes. In the past, you had to have a prior teacher sign off for honors. Since I was applying online, I saw an opportunity to skip around those rules. I saw the normal classes and saw an exact replica of said classes, with 2 little letters in front of it, SE. I selected all of the classes that said SE and logged out. I didn't think about it again until the next semester. Next semester I get my schedule and surprise, all of my classes had SE next to it. I was excited to be in honors and told my family. When I compared my schedule with my friends, I noticed we didn't have any classes together. My high school was relatively small, so I thought it was a little odd, but I didn't look into it much further. When a bell rang and I arrived at my first class, they had the door opened and 3 teachers were in the room. When I walked in, they all greeted me and were really nice. They already had a seat for me with my name on it. When I sat down, I noticed only a handful of kids were in the class with me. What a small class! And so many teachers. When the bell rang, they shut the doors and locked it. When I looked around at my fellow classmates is when I realized something was wrong. I didn't know any of the kids. One was drooling on his desk next to me and seemed to have a hard time keeping his head up. Another person that stands out is a girl who was tapping on her desk really loud and just seemed very angry and off. The more I looked, the more I realized that this wasn't an honors class. I was surrounded by people with different disabilities and issues. I raised my hand and asked what class we were in. The teacher talking ignored me and kept on talking. I grabbed my schedule and when I looked at it, I realized my mistake. SE was not an honors class, it was for special ed. I had signed up for special ed classes for people with disabilities. I stood up and tried explaining I had made a mistake. The teachers refused to let me leave and thought I was having an outburst. One of the teachers sat next to me and whispered it was okay, and to calm down. She said the first day of class was always a little nerve-wracking, and I would make friends. No one was listening to what I was trying to explain. I endured the whole class. When the bell rang, I figured I would go to the office and explain my situation to them. The problem, the next class you had an escort. Some people stayed in the room and 2 other kids came with me and another teacher. At this point, I loudly exclaimed that I made a mistake with my schedule and I was going to the office. I didn't wait for the teacher to reprimand me and left. I was followed to the office by a teacher, and once I was in the office, they tried guiding me out. I legitimately think they thought I was throwing a fit. In a way, I kind of was. My assistant principal saw me in distress and told them she would have a talk with me. When I went into her office, I explained my situation. When I showed her my schedule and told her I thought I had signed up for honors classes, and instead it was special ed classes, she lost it. She laughed for a good 5 minutes, and told me that technically it could take 3 days to change schedules, and that she would leave me in it for good measure. She ended up changing my schedule, and called the SE classroom to explain the issue. I was placed in normal classes, and honestly, after what I did, I don't blame her. I never brought up honors again. I had several siblings that had attended before me, so she knew my family. When she called my mom and explained the situation, they left for another 10 minutes. None of my family or friends ever let me live it down. That was the last year they let us do our schedule change online. It was never said, but I think I might have contributed to that. Until the day I graduated, my assistant principal always had a smile on her face and a twinkle in her eye when I saw her. 5. For the last 5 years, I've had an ice cream tub full of sugar in my kitchen. I emptied it into the tub rather than have the bag spill sugar whenever I used it. I don't use sugar a lot, so I never had to refill it. I just dip into it when I need it. My girlfriend thinks this is weird, and she thought it was weirder still when I packed the box to move with me when we decided to move in together. Don't bring your weird 5-year-old sugar tub, for fuck's sake! It's perfectly fine, said I. Sugar doesn't go off. It does, she said wrongly. It doesn't, and I'm not going to throw away totally usable sugar. So the sugar tub resides in our baking cupboard now, as a tiny point of pride. I want to see how long it takes for the sugar to run out. Maybe it will outlive me, at which point it will be inherited by my beautiful, supportive, wrong girlfriend. Fast forward to this past January. My dad dies suddenly and unexpectedly. He falls off the roof while fixing a skylight, a day before someone was coming to start work on repairing the entire roof, including the skylight. But that was my dad to his core. He didn't know how to stop. He single-handedly ran his business, selling boating equipment and fixing outboard engines, for 47 years, a minimum of 6 days a week, until the day he died. I am not that person. I love stopping. I'm self-employed too, but I put the bare minimum in to survive and spend the rest of the time doing whatever I like. My dad couldn't have lived like that. We were very different people, and that made his passing all the more difficult because now we'd never get any closer. The slightly awkward, stilted conversations I'd had with him in life were now all we had. That was as close as we'd gotten. Fast forward again to last week, early June. We're trying to sell his shop, but it's a tip. Sadly, a couple of weeks before he died, he invested around $50,000 in restocking the shop. And so the back shop is filled to the ceiling with empty cardboard boxes. And the secondary room, his workshop, is full of tools, spare parts, half-empty paint cans, and half-finished engines that haven't been touched in at least a decade. Very likely double or triple that. I get to work. Breaking down the cardboard boxes doesn't take as long as I thought. And after lunch I start in the workshop. My dad specialized in seagull engines, which are now collectible, so I'm sorting everything into rubbish piles, and this might be worth something piles. Then at the back of a jammed drawer, under some oily rags and a grimy toothbrush, I find an ice cream tub. I open it up, and it's half full of sugar. The best before date is from 1998, so he had this box of sugar since I was 12 years old, maybe longer. For his coffee, I'm assuming. I call my mum through from the front of the shop. Look, I say, Dad had a box of sugar. Why would he have a box of sugar? Because it's perfectly bloody normal, that's why. I take a photo to send to my girlfriend, hoping my smugness will come across without needing to caption it. Won't it be out of date? Ugh, no. She doesn't look convinced. I lick my finger and dip it into the sugar. Look, I say, it's fine. I put it in my mouth, and I know immediately that it's not sugar. It's bitter, and it's bubbling. And fuck everything, my tongue is burning. I run out of the workshop and take a big swig of Coke, swill it around my mouth and spit it into the street. I do that another half-dozen times, but I've already burned my tongue very badly. One of my dad's friends comes from the end of the pier. "Everything okay?" he asks.
"Yeah, I just ate what I thought was sugar from an ice cream tub in the back. It wasn't sugar."
He laughs. "Why would your dad have had—"
"I don't know."
He walks in and comes back with the tub. It's caustic soda, he says, for cleaning engines. I now have chemical burns on my tongue. It's been a week and they haven't healed. I can't eat or drink anything in the least bit hot or acidic. I told my girlfriend and she didn't even laugh. Apparently, having an ice cream tub full of sugar isn't normal. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Embarrassing Stories, episode 79. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I want to give a special shout out to the author of story number 5 there, the unfortunate fellow with the tub of sugar. Nothing wrong with reusing an ice cream tub and popping other things in it. Quite economical, actually, I'd say. But anyway, that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is the Narcissist Cookbook. That's a person's YouTube channel. I'm going to link to the video. Right now, I think it's the only video they have on that channel, called Courtney. It's a wonderful piece of satire deconstructing conspiracy theories, and specifically the theory that Kurt Cobain, rather than having killed himself, wasn't, as some people will assert, murdered by his wife, Courtney Love, which is of course quite ridiculous. And it's primarily a song with a spoken word interlude in the middle, and then the song picks back up at the end. It's about 7 minutes long, and it's very well done, not only written and performed, but the video itself excellently put together. Funny, engaging, and while I'm asked to plug things in stories occasionally, I'll check the channel out, or if it's a YouTube channel or whatever it may be, the website, just to make sure it's something that I'm comfortable endorsing. And I've never found something that I haven't been. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'll credit you however you like. If you're letting me use your story, that's totally up to you, and I'm very happy to plug whatever you might be working on to do so. This is something that if I'd come across it myself, I'd probably have recommended it anyway to you guys, because it really was a delight, and I was very happy to discover it. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. A weekend of work still looms ahead of me. One more video to make. I've got another story to find for episode 300, then the Q&A. So, until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.